Welcome, human biology class. This is the last muscle video lecture. Wanted to start off with just a little bit of a clarification or an update on the CRISPR-Cas9 technology referenced in the last video lecture. CRISPR-Cas9 technology is basically researchers noticing that bacteria have an immune system as well. Not unlike our memory B cells, bacteria can be infected by viruses. Seems strange, but that happens. And viruses insert their genome into the bacteria. Bacteria have developed an ability to recognize that inserted segment of gene, if you will, and cut it out. And so they thought, well, what if we could mold that to work in the human genome, so that in the case of muscular dystrophy, could we have that CRISPR-Cas9 technology identify the sequence that has been damaged in the dystrophin gene, and cut it out and then replace it with the correct sequence. And they've been able to successfully do that. It's incredible. So yeah, that's what CRISPR-Cas9 technology can do. And no doubt there's people that are looking to use it for other genetic issues. It's never as simple or as easy as I make it out in just a few lines of explanation. But to give you an idea of the fact that we have an ability to recognize damaged portions of a gene, cut them out, and replace them with the correct sequences, that's incredible. And that's what CRISPR-Cas9 can do. Okay, so we're going to fast twitch, slow twitch muscle fibers. And at this point in the class, I typically ask the class who prefers white meat or dark meat when eating chicken. And from year to year, we'll get some that prefer white, some that prefer dark, and sometimes more prefer white meat, more prefer dark meat. Doesn't matter. Then I ask them, well, you know, what part of the chicken does that come from? And of course, the dark meat is the legs and other areas, and the white meat is the breast meat and wing meat. And so then I ask them, have you ever chased a chicken for fun, for whatever reason? And those that have will verify that the chicken will prefer to run, and it will only fly if it has to. And if it does fly, it only flies for short distances. And that should be confirmed in your own general observation, that in the fall of the year, you don't see big flocks of migrating chickens flying south for the winter like you do ducks. Duck breast meat is dark. It's made of slow twitch fibers that can handle the long flight times. Chicken breast meat is made of very white, light, fast twitch fibers that can generate a lot of energy quickly, but they can't sustain it. If you've ever been out in the woods or in a field and flushed a ruffed grouse or a pheasant, and that explosion that happens that startles you, that's what fast twitch fiber is capable of. And so if you look at it here at your notes, it says the majority of fibers, the way they're made, this should make sense. They're larger in diameter. Okay, that's just an observation. But they have fewer blood vessels and mitochondria, lighter in color, lots of glycogen, little myoglobin, and anaerobic ATP production. Okay, let's think about those pieces for a second here. Fewer blood vessels and mitochondria. So they're not going to be able to get, mitochondria is what your body uses to produce ATP, if you remember. So they're not going to be able to get a lot of new glucose there quickly in the bloodstream for the mitochondria to convert to a lot of ATP. There's not much myoglobin there. Myoglobin is the oxygen-carrying molecule in muscle fibers, muscle tissue. It's like hemoglobin, but it's adapted to the muscle environment. Hemoglobin doesn't work as well, doesn't hold oxygen as well in a higher temperature environment. When you're working hard, there can be a significant temperature because of all the blood supply in the muscles. They can work up a lot of temperature, and so myoglobin comes along. That's what your body has built to handle the muscle environment. Okay, so what's going on here? So your body takes a glucose molecule in the muscle environment, and without oxygen, by fermentation through the process of glycolysis, it simply splits one glucose and makes two ATPs. And it's not efficient because if you remember, if it would go through the whole Krebs cycle electron transport, you'd get like 34 molecules of ATP. But here you just get 2, but your body can generate them quickly. That's the key, quickly. So you get lots of power and speed, but you don't get much endurance because they burn out quick. And so I was thinking, what's something that's really fast that people do? The fastest thing that people do. Well, I've got a video clip here that I'm going to pause and let you take a look at, and it's Bad Bob Munden here, this gentleman right here. This is from 1986, and I've tried to find an updated version of this and yada yada. I can't. That's best I can do, but this is a good clip. Now the subtitles are, I think that's German. Might be Swedish. I don't know. I think it's German. And the video quality isn't great, but watch what this man does with a pistol. And I'm just going to stop here and pause the video and let you take a look at this little clip. I think you'll find it very entertaining. Well, hopefully you appreciate what he just did. Now that Colt 45 pistol that he's shooting, if you've lifted one of those, they're not light. So just his ability to move that gun that fast and that accurately, that's impressive. Now he's using low power cartridges because it doesn't kick that much, but that's okay because the deal is how fast he moves it. And I don't know, you can't even follow that very well with the human eye. It's just so fast. Now Bob Munden is very impressed with himself, obviously, but a little of that is show. He actually has passed away now. He lived in Montana. I actually had a student in this class last year that he came and did performances for in their high school. Was pretty cool, but he passed away of a heart condition, so he's no longer with us. But this video is, and so what he's able to do with a pistol is pretty incredible. Supposedly the Cisco Kid has come along and has broken Bob's record. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, you know, maybe the timing is just improved, but at any rate, Bob was very fast. So that's what fast twitch muscle is capable of. And then if you think about shifting gears to slow twitch fiber, we look at the characteristics there. Slower to contract after stimulation, smaller in diameter, darker in color because it has more myoglobin, more blood vessels, more and mitochondria, and it produces ATP through aerobic means, which means it's going to take a little longer, but it's going to be more efficient. It's going to make a lot more ATP out of that one glucose molecule, but it's going to take a little longer to do it. And so you get lots of endurance because of its ability to continually produce a lot of ATP, but not as much power. And if you think of people that can do things for a long time, of course, marathon runners would be high on the list. And if you look at their body type, it kind of jives with this description of slow twitch fiber. Smaller in diameter. These people are very lean. And it's common to see people from Kenya, Ethiopia do very well at marathons. I see Nairobi and lots of Ethiopia is at elevations, at Denver elevations or higher, so a mile high or above. And so they're training in a low oxygen environment, and that helps them. Plus, there's a lot of national pride in their ability to do so well in these endurance events, and they do. But it's a very lean body type that they have, contrasted with Brian Shaw, which has a very non-lean body type. He's got a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber, and these folks have a lot of slow twitch muscle fiber. Okay, so that begs the question then, can a person through training change their muscle type? Now, the jury is out on this yet, but here's a synopsis of what we know. You're born with about a 50-50 mix of light and dark, fast and slow twitch muscle fiber. Okay, and certainly Brian Shaw probably was born with more fast twitch, and these marathon runners probably born with more slow twitch muscle fiber. But if we look at the image from your textbook, here's an electron micrograph of that. So this gentleman would have fast twitch fibers, this lighter colored stuff. This lady, maybe a marathon runner, a slow twitch muscle fiber. And you can definitely affect that. It's not just either or. There's slow twitch, fast twitch, really fast twitch, and each of those exists as sort of a category amongst which there's variability as well. So it's not just fast twitch and slow twitch. Those are either ends of a continuum, and there's stuff in between. But, and I might get in a little trouble for this, but consensus seems to be that you can change about 10% of your fiber types into the other fiber type. You can also change it to behave more like, so if you've got a lot of fast twitch, you can behave it to train more like slow twitch without actually changing its type. But research suggests that there is some change that can actually occur. And they believe it has something to do with the innervation, the nervous system interacting with the muscular system. That's kind of interesting to think about. We talked about how people's blood types can be affected by bone marrow transplants. Well, here, your activity can affect your muscle type. Well, okay, so if we think then about some general statements considering these two different muscle types, strength, the strength of contraction is improved if you work a muscle to greater than 75% of its potential. Generally, you will hear the term, you got to use a lot of weight and a few repetitions to achieve that, to get improvements in strength, to improve the effect of your fast twitch muscle fibers. So your muscle fibers won't actually increase in number, but the number of myofibrils will. That's an important point. You shortly develop all the muscle fibers that you have. If I go back to this image, back to this image here. So you're born with all of these muscle fibers, but within them the number of myofibrils can change. Okay, so this whole unit here would be one skeletal muscle fiber, but here this is a myofibril. So strength can increase the number of myofibrils, strength training, but it will never increase the number of muscle fibers. Similarly, endurance, that's going to increase the duration of contraction. And with this one, a general statement is that if you use a little weight but do lots of repetitions, you will improve the performance of your slow twitch muscle fibers. Okay, these dark ones here. Generally speaking, hypertrophy is an increase in muscle size as those myofibrils are added. That's how this gentleman is getting big muscles, if you will. That's how Brian Shaw is getting big muscles. Of course, he's going to have started at a place where you and I probably are not starting at, but he has obviously improved that. Atrophy, you've heard of that atrophy, which is what many of us are doing. Actually, I think as a society, we're probably doing better getting out and doing stuff. Maybe, I don't know, walking, exercising, biking. I think all the pets, all the dogs are getting walked more than I've ever seen dogs getting walked before. But atrophy generally is if you sit around too much, you get a decrease in muscle size because of non-use. Again, you don't lose muscle fibers, but you do lose number of myofibrils. You can actually have muscle fiber deteriorate to the point that those fibers do break down with non-use or with the number of conditions like you saw with muscular dystrophy. But in the short term, for most of us, are fighting atrophy. You know, we're not fighting a loss of muscle fiber, we're fighting a loss of myofibril number. A couple of other terms when it comes to muscles. If you consider the bicep here, this end of the bicep does not move, but this end does. So as you flex the bicep, as it shortens, the forearm moves this way. This portion of the bicep then is going to be called the insertion. Okay, the moving end. Up here, this is called the origin of the bicep. Tone. You've always had your mother tell you sit up straight, or your dad tell you to not have such stooped shoulders, put your shoulders back. Well, there's a reason for that. That's muscle tones created by muscle fibers which contract when the muscle is at rest. So that means even when the muscle is at rest, like this, if the bicep were here and this hand were relaxed, okay, there's going to be muscle fibers in there that are going to be contracting a bit. Okay, they're going to be contracting, I should say. Just not many of them. And that's going to give you tone. If you've seen people sitting there and they got just that chiseled appearance, that's how they get it. Because some of the myofibrils are always contracted. That's why weightlifting does have a long-term benefit for weight loss, because it improves muscle tone, and tone means there's always myofibrils contracting, and myofibrils contracting means you're burning calories, and so that is an effect that is worthwhile. Generally, an effect of exercise is to increase the amount of ATP in muscles. That's what your goal is. Of course, many of us exercise to burn calories. That's also involved, definitely. But it also increases muscle's tolerance to lactate. Now, remember, not lactic acid, but lactate, which you can tolerate more of that. And we made the case that that can be a good thing. It helps your body deal with that acidic environment in the muscle. Two last conditions I wanted to talk about were tetanus and polio. Tetanus, also called lockjaw. I love good Wikipedia image here. Artist's rendition of lockjaw. I'm going to go back to an image from your text book here. You see, muscle goes through periods. There's this latent or non-reactive period. There's this contraction period when it has been stimulated, and then a relaxation period. Okay, so here, if you're going to try to do something with a muscle, you're lifting weights. There's this stimulus, and maybe you want to lift more and more weight. You could see those weightlifters as they were slowly trying to lift that weight. Summation was occurring. More and more muscle fibers were getting into the act until at some point they got all the muscle fibers that they could manage to get going in the act, and that's called tetanus, and that's the most they can do. That's all they could lift. Or in the case of the lady running, that's as far as she could go. That's kind of a poor example. The lifting one's a better example. And then fatigue happened. Okay, and the lady, that was obvious with her running the marathon. Fatigue happened. So this term tetanus refers to all the muscle fibers firing. Remember, if they fire all the way or not at all. There's no in between for a myofibril. Okay, so that is tetanus. There is also a condition called tetanus. If you've paid attention to the shots you've gotten the DPT shot. DPT stands for diphtheria, which is a respiratory issue. Diphtheria, pertussis, which is whooping cough, and tetanus. That's what DPT is. Diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. And tetanus shot, tetanus is actually a condition, a bacteria that Clostridium tetani, I believe, deposits a neurotoxin, and it causes a sustained, what we call a sustained tetanic condition. It blocks the release of a neurotransmitter called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. That's going to come up in the nervous system, so don't worry about it. But it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's part of what turns your muscles off. And if you don't have GABA working, this is what happens in your body. Every muscle in your body in an extreme case. Look, even his toes are flexed, curling over. Even his jaw is clenched. His eyes are wide open. Every muscle in his body is firing maximally. That's tetanus. Bad deal. So that's why if you step, and it's an anaerobic bacteria, so if you step on a nail, a deep puncture is what puts you at risk. It's a common bacteria in the soil, so if you step on a nail, you can be shoving that bacteria deep into your body in an anaerobic condition that it likes. It'll live there, grow, produce that neurotoxin, and have that effect. Bad deal. I also showed you this image before, thinking of past epidemics that have transfixed our nation's attention, not too dissimilar from what's going on now, although we never shut down the economy before, not even for this. This is polio. Now, polio affected many people, but more often young people. And you can see a lot of the people, and there's a lot of kids here, and I mentioned the experience of a friend of mine that went through this, how difficult it was. They couldn't even move their eyes or blink. They just had to look at people in the mirror here that tried to talk to them, and that is what people noticed. This is about the same time that in the 50s that people started seeing images of this, and even the TVs were coming in, and so people were terrified of this, and it all sort. I don't think they hoarded toilet paper, but they did all sorts of weird stuff. But in reality, only about 10% of the people that contracted polio, it was fairly common, actually got paralysis. Some would say only 5% got weakness and paralysis. Some like the gentleman I mentioned, it was just walking up a staircase and boom, it hit him. And he just collapsed, and he became completely paralyzed. Had to be put in one of these machines. It's basically a respirator, was the 1950s version of a respirator to help him breathe because he couldn't do it sufficiently on his own. And so what you've got here is a virus that attacks and can cause swelling in the gray matter of the spinal cord. This is a cross-section of the spinal cord. This is what it actually looks like. So this is an artist's rendition of that. So yeah, and it's interesting because in the spinal cord, we have gray matter on the inside and white matter on the outside. When we get to the brain, we're going to find gray matter on the outside and white matter on the inside. It kind of trades places, if you will. So polio was a virus that was a neurological virus, but it affected muscles. So it's a nice segue between the muscular system and the nervous system, which is where we're going next. Thank you. Have a good day.